Okay, so picture this, right? It's the 80s. Big hair, shoulder pads, and a new kind of celebrity is like taking center stage.
Yeah.
The televangelist.
Yeah.
And these preachers, right, they're not just like promising
Mm.
salvation, they're promising like wealth and success too. It's like
Mhm.
a whole different kind of gospel. So we're going deep into the story of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker,
Okay.
this power couple behind the PTL ministry and their empire, right? It's all built on faith, big dreams, but it kind of crumbles under the weight of scandal.
I find really fascinating about the Bakers is that their story, it captures like a specific moment in American culture. It's this intersection of faith, entertainment, and ambition.
Oh yeah, and it's all happening on this huge public stage.
Oh, absolutely.
So we'll be looking at their rise to fame,
Yeah.
obviously,
Hmm.
and the whispers of like financial irregularities,
Right.
and of course, the allegations that brought everything crashing down.
Yeah, the scandal.
So for this deep dive, we've got some incredible sources, like firsthand accounts from reporters, the ones who really dug deep for the truth.
Oh, yeah.
We've got insiders, people who actually saw this drama unfold.
Wow.
And we even have Jim Bakker himself.
This is not just like a tabloid story. The Baker scandal, it really forced America to like confront some tough questions about power,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
about like religious institutions
Yeah.
and whether those preaching were actually, walking the walk.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole thing, right?
Okay.
Let's start with like the rise of PTL.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim and Tammy Faye, right?
Yeah.
Big personalities, even bigger hair.
Oh, yeah.
They're preaching this message that really resonated with people, millions of people. It's called the prosperity gospel.
Yeah, imagine a theology that essentially says God wants you to be rich.
Right.
That was the prosperity gospel
Like straight up.
in a nutshell. And it was incredibly appealing, especially in the 80s,
Oh, totally.
when materialism and individual success were so in vogue.
Yeah. And they were living that message too, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Multiple houses, luxury cars.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Heritage USA, their Christian theme park
Right.
and resort. Talking about going big.
It was really a testament to their success. I mean, it drew huge crowds.
Yeah.
It generated significant revenue through donations, merchandise sales,
Oh, wow.
and these lifetime partnerships they sold for their Heritage Grand Hotel.
Oh, wait, those partnerships. You mentioned those before.
Yeah.
Those became a huge problem, didn't they?
They did. They were basically selling more stays at the hotel than it could accommodate.
Oh, wow.
Think of it like overbooking an airplane on a massive scale.
Wow.
It was a financial house of cards just waiting to collapse.
So even while their empire's like booming, the seeds of its destruction are already being sown.
Right.
But there were other cracks starting to emerge too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, journalists, they were starting to smell something fishy, weren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, reporters, they saw this lavish lifestyle
Yeah.
that contrasted so sharply with the baker's message of humble Christian living.
Right.
So they started digging into their financial dealings.
That's where this young reporter, Terry Mattingly, he enters the picture.
Okay.
He gets this mysterious phone call,
Uh-huh.
a tip about Jim Baker and a woman named Jessica Hahn.
Jessica Hahn.
And the caller's terrified, right?
Mm.
They claim that Baker's a dangerous man.
So this is where investigative journalism it really comes into play.
Right.
Mattingly, with very little to go on, he starts chasing this lead,
Yeah.
trying to figure out who is Jessica Hahn and what does this all mean?
Meanwhile, at the Charlotte Observer, there's another reporter, Charles Shepard. He'd been covering PTL.
Okay.
And he was already suspicious, right, of their financial dealings.
Right.
So this new lead about Jessica Hahn, it just adds fuel to the fire.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. And Shepard, he was relentless. I mean, poring over documents, interviewing sources,
Wow.
really trying to piece together this puzzle.
And then things take this even more dramatic turn.
Okay.
Shepard gets a call.
Oh.
But this time it's from Jessica Hahn herself.
Wow.
She's reluctant to reveal her identity at first,
Right.
but eventually she shares her story.
Yeah.
And it's a harrowing account of sexual assault
Oh, wow.
orchestrated by this PTL minister, John Wesley Fletcher.
this is a pivotal moment. I mean, Shepard now has firsthand testimony from the alleged victim,
Right.
specific details about the incident, and someone willing to come forward,
Yeah.
albeit hesitantly.
But there's a catch.
Yeah.
Right. Jessica Hahn, she'd already signed this confidentiality agreement,
Oh wow.
agreeing to stay silent, right,
Mhm.
in exchange for $10,000.
Yeah.
So she feels trapped.
Yeah. Right.
Exploited, and she wants to break free from this web of silence.
Exactly. I mean, PTL with its vast resources and influence
Yeah.
was using its position to silence Hahn and protect its image.
Right.
And the confidentiality agreement, while not illegal, was a tool of coercion,
Oh, wow.
preying on her vulnerability and her fear.
So we've got reporters closing in,
Mm.
an alleged victim ready to speak out,
Right.
and the Bakers, right, seemingly oblivious to this storm brewing around them.
Yeah.
They're still pushing their prosperity gospel
Mhm.
and those ticking time bomb lifetime partnerships.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
And Charles
Right.
Shepard, armed with Jessica Hahn's story, he's about to blow the lid off this whole thing.
But before that happens, another key player emerges.
Yeah.
Richard Dortch,
Mm.
PTL's executive vice president.
Right.
He's tasked with managing this crisis
Uh-huh.
and protecting Jim Bakker from the fallout.
So Dortch is caught in a really tough spot. I mean, he's loyal to Baker and PTL,
Right.
but he's also starting to see the cracks in the facade,
Yeah.
the truth behind this carefully crafted image of piety and prosperity.
So what does he do? I mean, he can't exactly ignore a potential scandal of this magnitude.
He tries to contain it.
Okay.
He attempts to discredit Jessica Hahn.
Hmm.
He downplays the severity of the allegations.
Right.
And ultimately he tries to buy her silence
Oh, wow.
with even more hush money.
Wait, so they're just like throwing money at the problem?
Well, yeah, I mean, they needed $265,000 to secure Hahn's silence.
Right.
And that's where Ro Messner enters the picture.
Yeah.
He was PTL's lead contractor.
Okay.
And let's just say someone accustomed to moving money around discreetly.
The fact that they had to resort to such measures really speaks volumes about their financial instability, doesn't it?
No, absolutely. They were struggling to maintain appearances, and the Jessica Hahn scandal, it threatened to expose just how deep the problems ran.
So the money is paid, the agreement is signed,
Mhm.
and Jim Bakker, for the moment, breathes a sigh of relief.
Right.
But the truth has a way of coming out, and Charles Shepard, he's not giving up.
No. And remember that anonymous caller
Yeah.
who first tipped off Mattingly about Jessica Hahn?
Yeah.
Well, Shepard eventually uncovers his identity,
Okay.
and it's John Wesley Fletcher,
Right.
the very minister who allegedly orchestrated the encounter between Baker and Hahn.
Wow.
Now ostracized from PTL, Fletcher is more than willing to talk.
Right.
He feels betrayed by Baker.
Okay.
And his testimony backs up many of the details in Hahn's account.
This is where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Shepard now he's got multiple sources, a paper trail of hush money, and this growing sense that the Baker's empire is built on very shaky ground.
Right.
He confronts Baker, demands a response to the allegations.
Okay.
So cornered, right,
Mm-hmm.
facing mounting pressure.
Yeah.
What does Baker do?
Right.
Does he come clean?
Not exactly. He decides to go on the offensive.
Okay.
He resigns from PTL,
Mm.
but not before delivering this very, very carefully crafted statement
Okay.
in which he blames manipulative associates and a female Confederate for his downfall.
I noticed he never mentions Jessica Hahn by name.
No.
It's like this classic attempt to control the narrative, right?
Right.
Portray himself as a victim of circumstance rather than someone who might have done something wrong.
And his lawyer, Roy Grutman, he takes a similar approach.
Yeah.
He dismisses Hahn's allegations as exaggerations.
Right.
And he attacks her character,
Yeah.
hoping to shift the focus away from Baker's actions.
But it's too late, isn't it? The damage is done. Shepard, he publishes his expose.
Right.
The scandal explodes.
Yeah.
And the Baker's carefully constructed world comes crashing down.
And the fallout from this, it went far beyond Jim and Tammy Faye Baker.
Right.
It had a massive impact on televangelism as a whole,
Yeah.
raising serious doubts and scrutiny about religious figures.
Yes.
Especially those preaching the prosperity gospel.
Wow. So much has already happened, and this is just the beginning.
Right. Last time we saw the Bakers like seemingly perfect world, it just started to unravel.
Yeah.
With Jim Bakker's resignation, PTL was now facing this really uncertain future.
It's hard to overstate the influence they had built, right?
Yeah.
Millions of people tuned into their broadcasts. They were constantly in the news. And Heritage USA, it was like a major, major destination for believers. What happened to this massive organization once its leader was gone?
Well, with Maker out of the picture, PTL was left in this state of chaos.
Okay.
The organization was deeply in debt. Those lifetime partnerships, they were a financial time bomb.
Yeah.
And donations, they were plummeting because of the scandal.
So it was a mess.
Yeah.
Financially and in
Yeah.
terms of public image. Who stepped in to try and like salvage things?
Another prominent televangelist, Jerry Falwell, he saw an opportunity to kind of take the reins. He represented this more conservative, arguably less flashy brand of Christianity.
That seems like a huge shift in style. What was that transition like?
It was far from smooth. Falwell, he pledged to restore integrity and financial stability, but there were clashes right from the start, particularly with Tammy Faye.
Okay.
She felt sidelined and betrayed by his leadership.
So the drama didn't end with Baker's resignation. This internal conflict has been fascinating to watch play out.
It was, and this tension, it really highlighted the divisions within the evangelical community at the time.
Yeah, you had the Bakers with their emphasis on emotion, inclusivity, and the prosperity gospel, versus Falwell, who represented this more traditional, fire and brimstone approach.
So Falwell was trying to clean up PTL's finances, but that couldn't have been easy, right?
No, it wasn't. He tried to implement austerity measures.
Okay.
He sold off assets and made these pleas for emergency donations, but the damage to PTL's reputation was severe, and many donors, feeling disillusioned, they just walked away.
You mentioned earlier that Falwell himself, he faced scrutiny for his own financial practices. Right. And his lavish lifestyle. Wasn't that a bit hypocritical?
It definitely added another layer of complexity to the situation.
Yeah.
Despite his conservative image, he wasn't immune to criticism, and his involvement in PTL only amplified those concerns.
And then things took an even stranger turn, right? Didn't Falwell make some pretty wild accusations? He did. He claimed to have found evidence of sexual misconduct involving PTL staff members, even hinting at a possible homosexual ring operating within the ministry.
Wow.
This was all happening at the same condo in Florida that the Bakers had purchased with PTL funds.
But were those accusations about a homosexual ring actually credible?
Right.
Or was Falwell just trying to like muddy the waters and distract from the Jessica Hahn scandal?
These allegations were never substantiated, and many saw them as a deliberate attempt to further discredit Baker.
Yeah.
And exploit existing homophobia within segments of the evangelical community.
It sounds like a very calculated but ultimately damaging move. This whole saga was a public spectacle, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. Yeah. And it further eroded public trust in PTL and televangelism in general.
So while all this is happening, what were Jim and Tammy Faye doing? How did they react to this chaos?
Jim Bakker retreated from the public eye for a while, seeking solace and spiritual guidance. Mm-hmm. He eventually published a book called I Was Wrong,
right,
in which he confessed to his sins, he repented for his mistakes, but he also blamed others for his downfall. He also started rebuilding his ministry, although on a much smaller scale.
And what about Tammy Faye? Did she stand by her husband?
No, she actually divorced Jim.
Okay.
Citing his infidelity and controlling behavior, she embarked on this really remarkable journey of reinvention.
Right.
Embracing LGBTQ plus rights.
Wow.
Challenging conservative Christian dogma.
Yeah.
And eventually becoming a pop culture icon in her own right.
It's amazing how she went from being ridiculed for her appearance, her emotions,
yeah,
to being celebrated for her compassion and her willingness to challenge the status quo.
It truly is. She went from being seen as this caricature of a televangelist's wife to being a symbol of forgiveness and acceptance.
But despite the personal journeys of Jim and Tammy Faye, the legal ramifications of the PTL scandal, they were far from over, right?
Right, right. Federal investigators seeing potential fraud,
Yeah.
they began to focus on those lifetime partnerships
Yeah.
and other questionable fundraising activities.
Didn't PTL sell way more of those lifetime partnerships than they could actually fulfill? I mean, wasn't that a recipe for disaster from the beginning?
It was. They knew they couldn't deliver on those promises.
Yeah.
Plus there's evidence of donor money being used for personal expenses,
Oh, wow.
loans disguised as charitable contributions, and a pattern of deception. The government had a strong case.
So what happened? Did Tim Baker face any legal consequences for all this?
He did. In 1989, he was indicted on 24 counts of fraud and conspiracy.
Right.
The trial was a media frenzy with Baker facing serious prison time if convicted.
This trial must have been quite revealing.
It was. Former employees, financial experts, even Jessica Hahn herself, they testified,
Wow.
painting this picture of a culture of secrecy, greed, and the abuse of power within PTL.
And the verdict?
Guilty on all counts. Baker was sentenced to 45 years in prison, a stunning fall from grace for a man who once headed this multi-million-dollar empire built on faith and the promise of prosperity.
Wow, 45 years. That's a long time. This whole ordeal must have had a huge impact on the world of televangelism.
It did. The Baker trial, it was a major turning point. It signaled a loss of innocence for the movement, and it led to increased scrutiny of other televangelists and their practices.
This really underscores how power, no matter what it's built on, can be so easily corrupted.
Yeah.
And it makes you question the role of faith in public life
Mm-hmm.
and the dangers of blind trust.
But the Baker saga, it wasn't just about the downfall of one man,
Right.
or even one ministry. It reflected these deeper societal anxieties about the changing role of religion,
Yeah.
the allure of wealth and fame,
Mhm.
and the blurry lines between faith and exploitation. It's a story that continues to resonate today.
It's fascinating how much this story reveals about our culture and the power of belief. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the aftermath of the trial, the lasting legacy of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker,
Yeah.
and the impact this whole saga had on American culture and the evangelical movement. We've been like digging into this whole world of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, right? From their prosperity gospel empire to
Yeah.
their very public, very messy downfall. And last time we left off with Jim Baker facing a 45-year prison sentence
Right.
for fraud and conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened next? Did he actually serve all that time?
He didn't. He ended up serving 5 years of his sentence
Bummer.
before being released in 1994.
5 years is still a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
What did he do after he got out? Did he try to rebuild his life, his ministry?
He did. He remarried.
Okay.
And eventually returned to television broadcasting,
Right.
though on a much smaller scale than his PTL days.
Yeah.
He maintained a loyal following,
Okay.
but he never regained the level of influence he once had.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine going from such a height of fame and power to
Yeah.
facing criminal charges and prison. His story really is a cautionary tale, isn't it?
It is. It highlights the dangers of unchecked ambition, financial mismanagement, and the potential for abuse within religious institutions.
And what about Tammy Faye? What happened to her after the divorce and the whole PTL collapse?
Tammy Faye, she took up a very different path.
Okay.
She continued to preach and advocate for social justice causes,
Mhm.
but she did so with this new sense of authenticity
Okay.
and a willingness to challenge traditional religious norms.
You mentioned earlier that she became a bit of a pop culture icon.
Yeah.
What led to that shift?
She embraced LGBTQ plus rights.
Wow.
She spoke out against homophobia within the church.
Okay.
And even befriended people with AIDS during a time when when fear and stigma surrounding the disease were rampant.
That's so interesting. It seems like she really, really went against the grain of what many conservative Christians were saying and doing at the time.
She did, and because of that, she was embraced by a new generation. Yeah.
Who saw her as this symbol of compassion and acceptance. She went from being ridiculed to being celebrated for her unwavering belief in God's love for all people.
It's a remarkable transformation. She refused to be defined by her past and instead used her platform to advocate for those who were often marginalized and rejected by the very community she came from.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of personal growth and the ability to redefine one's legacy.
The Baker scandal also had a significant impact on how the media covered religion and televangelism, didn't it?
It did. Journalists became much more critical and skeptical. They
Right.
they started to investigate financial practices more closely
Mhm.
and question claims of divine intervention or miraculous healing.
So the public was no longer taking these televangelists at their word. There was a sense of distrust.
Exactly. The Baker scandal really marked a turning point in the relationship between the media and the evangelical movement.
Yeah. There was a shift from uncritical acceptance to a more questioning, even adversarial approach.
It seems like the Baker story, it still resonates with us today, even decades later. Why do you think that is?
I think it raises these enduring questions about the nature of faith,
Mm.
the role of religion in public life,
Yeah.
and the potential for exploitation when faith and money become intertwined.
It also makes you think about the allure of power and fame.
Yeah.
And how easily those things can corrupt even those with good intentions.
It definitely does, and it highlights the importance of accountability,
Right.
not just for religious leaders, but for anyone in a position of power and influence.
Well, this deep dive into the world of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker has been fascinating. It's a story full of twists and turns, betrayals, and ultimately redemption in unexpected places.
It certainly is. It's a reminder that even in the face of scandal and failure, there's always the potential for growth, forgiveness, and second chances.
And we encourage you to check out the sources we used for this episode and learn more about the key players involved.
Yeah.
It's a story that continues to spark conversation and debate, and we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely.
And as always, join us next time for another deep dive into a story that shaped our world.